Okay, hello everyone. George Webb, and as you can see, I've moved away. I moved away from the. We had to get out of the charrette house, so that was generously provided to us. So I really appreciate you all joining me here this morning from all around the world. I didn't. I guess I could do a background here, and the background I should probably do is related to. And I'll turn that down. Back down around I'm going to do is probably let's just go with Caesar. How about Caesar? Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, and let's go with that. How about that? Let's go here with how about Caesar's ideal Rome for a background? How's that? Maybe I should have chosen a different background, but let's go with Caesar's ideal Rome. And so when I say Charlie was killed, oh, it's backwards. That's nice. So I don't know why, but anyway, StreamYard doesn't like me this morning, I guess. But the good morning from everyone all over the world. And one of the one of the things that we try to do at the end of these charrettes, we have people come from all over the United States. In this case, we had a lot of local people and we had a lot of young people, sort of the Charlie Kirk crowd this time. But what we try to do is try to have a synthesis after it's over. What takeaways. Review our notes, review our pictures of our whiteboards. We have this spinning whiteboard that just seemed to get flipped constantly and constantly erased, and new ideas. So we had a lot of ideas flowing over this. If you don't know what a charrette is, it's a news gathering event where people usually, this was a little bit shorter, but it's usually 12 days, 12 people. The last one we did is 20 days and about 12 people. January 6th was about 18 people, 18 days. Military live exercise was about 18 days, 20, 30 people in that one, a lot of people in that one. So what we try to do is bring all the minds together, and background looks good to me, not backward. Okay, so maybe that's just me. All right. You can read Caesar's ideal Rome. Okay. All right. Let me check it on Twitter to see. But the whole what we try to do is reach for synthesis, and a lot of these things that are occurring in our society in the past with World War I and World War II, we used those two examples in the Cold War, those three examples. We use those three examples as foils or templates to understand what's happening now by looking at the current events and current kind of war footing, war propaganda, and so forth with Ukraine war, and looking at through the lens of World War I, World War II, and the Cold War, we can. Background looks good to you too. Okay, that's good news. Yeah, it does look good here. I see it on my Twitter, so I'll just stop worried about it. Great, thank you very much for the feedback. Synthesis requires kind of a depth of field, right? Several panes to look through. Okay, several focal lenses, if you will, to look through. And so we really concentrated on World War I, World War II, and the Cold War as our focal lenses, sort of our microscopic lenses to look at the events of today. And that's the whole idea of setting this new series, The Investigators, in a bookstore. That's the whole idea of having Peter Duke, be the curator of this, of sort of the Library of Alexandria that we have. That's why we set it in a bookshop, so that this person could have these citizen journalists coming and going, and then saying, hey, I've got, rather than you doing all your chemistry or your physics and so forth with the naked eye, I just happen to have a microscope here. I just happen to have a electron microscope over here. I just happen to have a more powerful telescope over here. I have a way of you seeing the world and seeing the events of the world with the metadata of the world in a more powerful way, so that you can do a better job of what you're doing. So it's sort of the same idea. Little Julius Caesar intrigue and the betrayal in order today. Yeah, I think that is going to be the case, because I think when assassinations occur, it's usually when someone's idea of the future, someone's vision of the future is different from the from the junta's vision. If your vision of the future is a pluralistic society, um, and you're in Afghanistan, and there's the Taliban, and their idea is their religious group controls everything, you're going to probably die. If you're Kennedy and you think of, hey, the United Nations, and we should be the model of the world for democracy, and you have Alan Dulles's model of the world saying, no, Gladio, we need to be shipping weapons into these things and overthrowing these countries. Self-determination in FDR isn't where we need to be. We need Gladio to underthrow these countries. We need to be training Contras in adjacent countries and then shipping them covertly. And we need to have cover stories and all these subterfuges. Those are two different visions of the world, how the world works and how we should proceed. And assassinations typically occur when the person who's leading is not in tune with the rank and file or the other elites making the plan. And in Caesar's case, there's 22 senators in Rome. I think Caesar gets written up well with Shakespeare and so forth, but that want that want the Senate to be a powerful a powerful overseer of the emperor, right, and the presidency, or the head man. Okay, let's just call it the head man. And Caesar doesn't want it that way. Caesar wants there to be kind of tribunals that he sets up. A tribunal for the three branches of government, and then a tribunal for education, and then a tribunal for education and commerce, a commerce tribunal, etc. And okay, 3:30 Live yesterday. Yes, Et tu, Brute, of course, is the famous line that Brutus says, who is another general. But they say Caesar was too ambitious. It was amazing how all the young 20-somethings were all up on Caesar. Boy, we had a hot topic on Caesar and how Caesar was too ambitious. They all knew that story, which is kind of amazing because they didn't know about the Charlie Kirk wound, being horizontal shot and a vertical wound. But they all knew about Caesar being too ambitious. So it was very interesting to meet with so many of the younger 20-somethings. But my piece yesterday really goes into this takeaway, and I want to take you through it really quickly. And I want to compare it to Constantine's Constantinople, that a lot of people are familiar with, which did become Caesar's. This Caesar's ideal Rome was not. The Senate wasn't hip to that. Shared power. The Senate wanted shared power, and Caesar wanted all power, and so they assassinated Caesar, right? But Constantinople did actually actuate Caesar's failed Rome, right? And then this concept gets brought back where it did control all the branches of government, and in Constantinople they did control all the commerce, and they minted their own coins, and from Byzantium, and they did control the education, and the Seven Mountain Mandate did happen. So Caesar's kind of original vision was a Seven Mountain Mandate for Rome, 7 hills in Rome. But the Seven Mountain Mandate did happen in Constantinople. That's the example we have. And then it's brought back to Rome, and through mainly the popes. You don't need to know all the Pope Gregory and Pope Innocent and so forth. But the Seven Mountain Mandate with the 7 hills of Rome was brought back to Rome through the popes, and the popes actually having armies, if you will. And this is the rise of the city-states of Venice and the rise of the city-states of Florence and so forth. So, you remember the slip and slide. It's winter. I just wanted to say really quickly, it's wintertime right now in our citizen journalism school in Michigan. We still are the only group that has a citizen journalism school. And very close to it is a large water slide, which we call the slip and slide. And it's running right now in winter. It's right next to a Cabela's, so guys like going there too. The moms like going there with their kids because their kids will play all day, and the moms can talk with each other. And so when you say something that is doesn't move the ball forward in the discussion here, we give you a free trip to Dundee. We give you a free trip to the slip and slide. So we had our first slip and slider this morning. Rome was a republic for centuries. This is my point: is Rome was a republic, and Caesar was talking about a dictatorship. I mean, no matter how we want to remember it, what Caesar was doing is taking all the branches of government into himself, and the republic was being threatened, and the republic was what was ended. And military people don't like three checks and balances. They don't like three branches of government. It's messy. It takes a long time. It's not expeditious. And this is the fundamental battle that's going on through all of history, right? And I think it's about 4 centuries that Rome is a republic, where the Senate kind of sends out the army, and then they come back, and then the army is working for the Senate. And when the general gets too powerful and he comes back and goes, hey, what do I need you guys for? I'm running the show here. And that's what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. So Constantinople, I talk about that, and then they bring it back to Rome through the popes. You don't need to know all about those, other than, it brings back kind of the Renaissance. And then we go into the Calvinist thinkers, and this is where people, eyes start glazing over, so I don't cover it too much. But I go into John Calvin's Geneva, and you're going to see that. And then I go into, with the Seven Mountain Mandate, really strong Seven Mountain Mandate, a lot of parallels to today. And that leads right into Gladio. It leads right into William Stevenson and the man called Intrepid British Intelligence, Gladio, and Alan Dulles' Gladio. And what you have today with Seven Mountain Mandate is a Gladio, right? Is a Gladio. So I'll go to the Substack that I wrote, and why we picked the device, the setting, if you will, of a bookstore, in order to be able to tell this historical thread here, substrate, through a character. And that character is Peter Duke. The Jesus movement founder, the Jesus freak and the hippie freak movement, or the Jesus freak movement, founded in California, in Costa Mesa. We'll show how that was a spinoff of the Calvary movement. And this could be John Calvin, with Alan Dulles creating the Calvary Church. And this is the Rob McCoy's church, the Calvary Church in Thousand Oaks. This is the people that infiltrate into Charlie Kirk's church movement, the TPUSA. This is where Candace Owens is looking around going, hey, we were a First Amendment free speech group, and now it's all faith around here, right? What's happened? It seems like an infiltration's happening here. If I had a handler, they're singing the Peter, Paul, and Mary song, If I Had a Handler. All of a sudden, everybody has handlers around here. This is the infiltration, right? The Calvinist infiltration. And we'll get to that in the as we go through. Could you link? Can you provide a link to the Grassroots bookstore? Yeah, I can. If somebody would be so good to do that. Yeah, Calvin and Calvary are not associated, but I am saying that the Calvary Church was infiltrated in California, and that these Calvinistic ideas of Seventh Mountain Mandate were introduced into, especially out of Riverside, California. And the Jesus freak movement, or the Jesus movement, with LSD and all that, was introduced by CIA. And in this area, same time they were doing Echoes of Laurel Canyon and music, right? Music is the arts is another area that you want to control in the Seven Mountain Mandate. So you think of it, the whole series I did on CIA infiltration into the music and Hollywood business is a mountain in and of itself. And the way they climb the mountain is through LSD, right? Through Robert Allen Hale being and the Sunshine guy, through William Hale, the brother, being a hippie preacher in Haight-Ashbury, I.B. Hale, of course, owning the liaison between the FBI and the CIA. So all of those things we'll get to. So Grassroots Bookstore is in Sparks. Sparks, because why? Because that's where Elon Musk makes his batteries for his Teslas. It's about as close to the new soccer stadium in Sparks as you can get. If you Google Grassroots and Sparks, I can't imagine you getting anything other than the Grassroots Bookstore there. And remember, that bookstore has a section about 6 feet wide for they called it conspiracy. So it's the first bookstore we can find. We couldn't find one in California, so we were kind of like Peter and I and Lady Jessica were kind of Diogenes with a lamp trying to find a bookstore that had a conspiracy section, a mainstream bookstore. And we finally found one in Elon Musk's battery, in the shadow of Elon Musk's battery plant in Sparks, and which is close to Reno for people. Close to Burning Man. We're on the road to Burning Man here, so we're really going head to head with Burning Man. We have the alternative as Learning Man, the ascension of man, rather than the declension of man. And we'll get to that as we roll forward here. But that's where we are, and this is kind of the last day wrap up. And there are folks who are talking about Riverside, and this is where Curtis LeMay, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, probably the guy who had a lot to do with, giving the vote to kill Kennedy. This is where he decides to have these CIA operatives sent off in these different areas into music. So the first 7 Mountain Mandate, I believe, is Curtis LeMay going into these churches with William Hale, with the Jesus Freak Church in Haight-Ashbury, having his Robert Allen Hale go in and do the music with the LSD, the Orange Sunshine. But you get the idea here is this isn't new. This happened in the 60s. This is how this was used against the Kennedys. So we'll go, I don't want to go too much into the history. We'll get back into the history here with the church and the Council of Nicaea and so forth. But what I don't want to lose is we renamed the conspiracy section when Peter Duke and I went to this bookstore, this grassroots bookstore. We renamed we had the owner, we asked the owner, and we proposed the owner that we change the name of the conspiracy section to revisionist history, because actually what we were doing is taking historical documents and rewriting history to the truth. And they said, well, could you give us an example? We said, well, you probably know who Hitler is. And then, yeah, we know who Hitler is. This book right here, 2 World Wars, is the book. And it talks about Putzi. Putzi is Hanf Stegel. It talks about Putzi Hanf-Stegel, and he's a Harvard guy. And he's the guy who teaches Hitler to do the Roman salute. He's the guy who teaches Hitler to do the pep rallies. He said, you got to have pep rallies, right? So he's the Harvard guy who does that. He's the guy who edits Mein Kampf while Hitler's in prison, supposedly ghostwrites Mein Kampf. You don't know who Putzi is, but he had a 14-year relationship with Hitler. He worked for the British intelligence. The British intelligence wanted the same deconstruction of the continent of Europe so that there would be British dominance, right? The same reason that World War I occurred, right? So this is a whole revised view of history. Everyone thinks, oh, Hitler rose to power by himself. He was just a little a painter of little scenes of Bavarian villages, and the next day he's running the country. No, he had a lot of support. He had a lot of support from the British intelligence, and that was like, whoa, that is a revised version of history. And the owner went and got a placard, and renamed the section Revisionist History. So now you can go to the revisionist history. So history is all on the other side, and it's like 7 or 8 shelves, huge history section, and there's this little revisionist history. But we planted the flag. We planted the revisionist history flag. So we'll get back to you on that, and people can get a link. But there is the link. Somebody put the link right up there, which is grassrootsbooks.com. I did not know that, so that's good. So as we go through here, let me go to my Substack. What we do is we get all the ideas on the board. First day, second day, we call the ideas. Third day, we refine the ideas for execution. So you're just seeing one of 10 or 12 different boards that we did. This one was about speakers and so forth, and topics and so forth. And Peter Duke did this board, but you get the idea. It's a lot of whiteboarding. There's no slideware. The part that people have trouble with a little bit is people are saying, well, where's the curriculum? Where's the curriculum? where's the things you're going to show me? Where are the learning objectives? Where are the, things that you should know at the end of this chapter? Where are the study and review questions? And that's not what it is. This is a group dynamic to take people who have been taking in information from all different sources and then coming up with what they think is actually happening, trying to read the tea leaves, so to speak, with the lens of history, with the lens of mainly First World War, Second World War, Cold War, and now Ukraine. So that's what's happening here. So it's a group process. It's a group dynamic. It's how new ideas and new industries are created, like electric cars, for instance. Because if you just get a bunch of gasoline, internal combustion engine people together, they're going to argue about minor refinements and improvements about gasoline powered cars. But if you get people who are thinking about transportation, they could say, well, it'd be great if we had all that, but also we'd have less smog in the cities. And there's a lot of city driving that doesn't require the acceleration. And we could, if somebody's just doing city driving, they could recharge every night. We could have these drive-in charging theaters, and yeah, could be a nice hybrid, so the hybrid automobile comes out of something like this. And of course, this builds a whole industry that we're hearing sparks with Tesla. People say that this is Elon Musk's bookstore. I have not seen Elon Musk yet. I don't know how often Elon Musk comes to Sparks. It's a great name. I love the name Sparks. I always thought, I don't like the name Sparky so much, but I like the name Sparks. My dad was a radio operator, and so was Peter's dad. So Sparks is kind of fitting. I always thought that would be kind of cool. Anyway, I want to take you through. This is the sample whiteboard. This is in no particular order, but this is a sample. You've seen these conspiracy theorist videos, and with Danny Casolaro on Netflix, and it's just confused. Why, Beautiful Mind, where Douglas, Russell Crowe. There's just conspiracy yarn everywhere. The girls, Lady Jessica, went to the yarn shop to go get conspiracy yarn, but you see the banker boxes. So we put those tropes into the series. We put the yarn into the series. We searched out, but they get the banker boxes and so forth. But that's just a trope. Most of the action happens, right? So that most of the reason to having a wall is so that people can visualize it. Okay, here's where Rob McCoy's Thousand Oaks Church is. Here's where Peter Duke is, in Port Hueneme, right? Here is where the Riverside is and Curtis LeMay is, mainly in a map orientation. So these are just examples, but people, with Ziklag, this is the Megadonors. Megadonors is the Ziklag organization. Megadonors choose their chosen church, in this case, Calvary Church, to be their instrumentation to go change the world, to go take over the 3 pillars of government, go take over the arts, go take over the government, go take over commerce, right? So that's what Ziklag is. That's what the NAR movement is being infiltrated. That's Charlie's church. So people need to see, oh, well, there's the Navy base in Port Hueneme. There's the Thousand Oaks Church, which is not Baylight, but then there's the Texas Petroleum donors that are financing it. That's the Ziklag organization. Here's the Citizen Journalist Network. There's a broadcasting network, Patriot Broadcasting Network in Nashville. It's a way of visualizing what the network is. You have your own network of citizen journalists, and they have their network cranking out these people that are doing Ziklag. Okay, so that's the big idea there. And we're seeing this happen as soon as Ziklag started getting some traction. I talked about it a lot, but then Candace Owen talked about it. Boy, if there was ever a way to get the Epstein files out, if there was ever a way to get more information out about crooks, just start talking about Ziklag. This is sort of like, the Cherokee rain dance, All you have to Ziklag, 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 and then all of a sudden gushers come. Here come the Epstein files. Here come the Butler files, because anything is better than talking about Ziklag, right? These massive, these big mega donors, $100 million a pop, which is just basically all front donors for the CIA infiltration into taking over the government. Anything but that, right? We'll talk about Epstein. We'll talk about how Melania was introduced to Trump through Epstein, through the Trump modeling agency. I don't care, right? Trump's recanted now and said, go ahead and vote for the release of the Epstein documents. Just don't talk about Ziklag, right? They're giving Tucker Carlson all of the Butler files, or some of the Butler files. Cash Patel is going to be dropping more about the DNC pipe bomber. Anything but Ziklag, right? Anything but Ziklag. And of course, the great research yesterday that came out, William Hale being one of the that went to school with Lee Harvey Oswald, along with Robert Allen Hale, also then turning into 13 years later, or 5 years later, being a hippie preacher, and the other one's a hippie guitar player. One to get into the religious organization, and the other one to get into music, right? To get LSD into both of those movements. There it is. That's the not far from the Sparks factory. Sparks factory for Elon Musk and Tesla is a little bit further up the hill, but not far. And there is the bookstore. And like I say, we have one little shelf here now in revisionist history, but from there we Ziklag ourselves. So there's the Peter Duke being being funny. He's the guy who teaches all the citizen journalists how these propaganda schemes are not new. They've been around since Constantinople. They've been around since Rome. They've been around since World War I, World War II, Cold War, etc. He's that character that brings us that information. There you can see the Dave McGowan's book, Weird Science, Weird Stories of Laurel Canyon. You can see the Chaos book by Tom. I keep forgetting his name, but this is the section right here, and this was the section that got renamed. And there are the banker boxes. We needed to make sure that in the series we got the banker boxes in there. And this is where Peter works, so he's the crank in the back with the banker boxes, but this is where the the Ziklag map will be. Again, we have to include a bigger audience, right? And at first you want to see that this guy's a conspiracy theorist crank. But as we move in, people start hearing and saying, wait a minute, why does Hitler have 14-year British intelligence handler that's teaching him all the Harvard pep rally things for all the pep for Nazi rallies? Why is it that he's writing Mein Kampf? Why is British intelligence writing Mein Kampf for Hitler in jail? What's going on with that? It seems like Britain wants there to be war on the continent so that Britain can be the penultimate power in England. Hey, wait a minute, that makes sense. The crazy guy out there in the bookshop is starting to make a lot of sense, and more people now are starting to be attracted to the Ziklag mural here. There he is doing his Jack Nicholson. He is kind of a Jack Nicholson character in the series, adding a lot of fun to again, a little fun and a little comedy, adding a little fun and comedy to the thing. And then, of course, I go and I visit him, and I learn a lot of these things about history, and that informs my citizen journalism. And hopefully other citizen journalists will come here and they go through this similar metamorphosis where they say, hey, wait a minute, I should be looking at these things through microscopes or electron microscope power of history, rather than just using my naked eye and just reacting like a cat with a laser pointer. Most of the YouTube pundits is just cat laser pointer, cat laser pointer, cat laser pointer. You never have this long historical pull of the compounding of lenses to get into this, to get into the accuracy, the scientific accuracy, and so that's what we're going for here. And so we may do some adaptations. We may set it in the 1940s, who knows? But there's just one idea of the investigators. Okay, so we got through that, and we're just talking about basically how everything came together as so far. And now here we get into how the infiltration actually happened with Charlie Kirk. It happened in 2019, right before right before 2021. And I was there with Joe Biggs in the end of 2019 when they got all the generals together at Trump Hotel, right? And they were going to use the generals, Mike Flynn and McInerney and a couple of other ones. There's 6 or 7. Stanley McChrystal was behind this, but he was a silent partner. But they were going to do this infiltration into the Trump campaign, and they're going to say the generals were going to take over, right? This is sort of like a fake coup. This is a what they call a trust operation, a slaughter pen. See how many people in the government are willing to go over with this. Joe Biggs was there near Christmas 2019 when this infiltration. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. You work for Stanley McChrystal. You work in Force Psychological Operations from Stanley McChrystal. You're going to be involved somehow in this thing. You're going to be leading this like mock coup here. And of course, he did later on, 14 months later, he did throw the gates at January 6th on behalf of Trump, trying to smear Trump. So that foreshadowing did occur 14 months later. Of course, we went to Force Psych Ops and so forth, 6 weeks, 8 weeks before January 6th as well. But the real outing of the Ziklag money and NAR money and this movement's money really started with Charlie Kirk and so forth, started before January 6th. That's the part nobody knows, right? That's the dots no one's connected. Charlie was beginning to be used at that point and infiltrated before January 6th, right? About 14 months before. And he started talking about the Seven Mountain Mandate and so forth. But again, the reason why it's encoded with Seven Mountain Mandate, they don't say, well, you remember Caesar, you remember Constantinople, you remember Gladio, you remember the sovereign military order of the popes, right? Which is the Knights of Malta. You remember that? That's what we're doing. That's the military takeover of the government. Well, that doesn't sound good. So you have to encode it with this Seven Mountain Mandate, and you have to make it a little bit mysterious to get people to, march forward, right? So anybody who doesn't play along, they get convicted of child porn. They have this Tim Ballard. He's got the low light cameras. They get people involved. They get them into situations at these camps, these retreats, and then they out them. And then they go away to prison for child porn or whatever, and get rid of the people out of the way that aren't on board with the Ziklag, right? So is this look a lot like Constantine's Constantinople? It sure does. Taking over all the branches of government, arts, entertainment, education, commerce, right? Does it look like Caesar's ideal Rome? Was that what Constantinople's model was? Yeah, sure does, right? Is it really Ellen Dulles' Gladio? Yeah, it sure is. Is it really William Stevenson, who is the man called Intrepid from British intelligence, that taught Ellen Dulles? Yeah. And so this is a hat tip to Peter Duke. He would say it's William Stevenson's Gladio, but it's this military takeover of the institutions, of society's institutions. Knock down the pluralist society, make it a government of tribunals. Make it a government of tribunals, right? That's what's going on here. The one we focus in on in this kind of the Stanley McChrystal, Knight of Malta, Mike Flynn, Knight of Malta, this type of thing. It's the Knight of Malta sovereign military order people that do Trump Russia the first time, right? That execute. The Link University is in Rome. George Papadopoulos is in Rome. Giamatti, the girlfriends from Rome, right? They're running it through the diplomatic immunity of the Holy See. It has a very Roman feel. Now they're trying to onshore it. Basically, when the same sort of Gladio program gets onshored, it's being onshored as NAR, right? It's being onshored as Ziklag. Is it just me saying this? No. Again, other journalists haven't done the deep dive and haven't done the deep lenses on this, and they haven't done the electron microscopy here, right? They haven't done even the microscopy here. So they just see it as, oh, this is a threat on the horizon. But other journalists have noticed this, and this is the same. This is the same thing. We've identified not only the movement, but we've actually identified the key people in the government, in NATO especially, that are the key actors of this this idea of gladio. This is remodified with a sort of a religious gladio. No, the original gladio was very religious in Italy as well. All right, with the father, with Angleton and so forth. But this is the new gladio now. Not Italy is not the target. The target is the United States of America, right? So there has to be grassroots organization here. So this is the fight here between, between the forces of good, forces of pluralistic society here, the founders, the founding documents, the Constitution, the branches of government, everything we fought for to become for as a nation. This is this last little vestige hope in Sparks, Nevada, in Elon Musk's bookstore, versus this kind of recurring theme of the military taking over the institutions of society and then just making military tribunals to run all of those different pillars of society. Right. So we talk about the Benassis. We've talked about where the training is in Oberammergau. We've talked about the Benassis, the guy who's running it, the NATO liaison to the Pope, the guy who is running the military order, sovereign military order of Malta. They make these generals from all over the world. They make them Knights of Malta. They have the stinky robes. There's all this kind of process. But at the bottom of it, it's that same Caesarian idea, right? So we talked about this before, about how this little island nation of Malta, well, has got a lot more behind it in terms of sending folks in Europe. So we've looked at it from a European point of view, and now we're going to look at it from American point of view. But you can see that they give out this Pro Pils Meritus Cross of the Sovereign Order of Malta to all these different people, right? And this is the idea here, is that there's going to be a group of families in Europe and a group of families in the United States that are elites that are going to power this thing. We have to rinse it to hide it from the obviousness of the action. They're going to do it through the instrumentation of their chosen church. They're going to pick up and infiltrate their chosen ones, their young global leaders, into the mountains of power, if you will, and then they're going to reconstruct the society based through force or through persuasion. They're going to have society restructured according to their elites' taste, the World Economic Forum, etc. So I just go through a couple of the Maltese connections. Chuck Johnson, who used to be the partner of Peter Duke, and he had a news organization, very close to Palmer Luckey, who's a billionaire now in the defense industry, doing AI drones and swarming drones, with Andrew Eel in Ukraine right now. And of course, Bannon, they had this gaming company called ZeniMax, and Bannon is the key kind of guy who is pushing this war room. It's even put in these war terms, war room. He's in New Apostolic Reformation. The new apostles are the people who will be running the tribunals. So this new junta will decide who the new apostles are, and the apostles will be the tribunals that will be sitting on the various mountaintops. Right, this is a very military idea where you go into Rome. There's 7 hills. Well, we've got to have a group of centurions to take the first hill, and when we need to take the second hill, we won't be safe until we take all 7 hills. But once we have overwatch over the fields of fire, then we'll control the city. You don't control the city by saying we'll go house to house and we'll put a soldier in every house. That's not how it works, right? You can do much more with much less if you work at it strategically and just say, I'm going to take the 7 hills. We don't have unlimited resources. It's a very military concept, right? Let's just take the 7 hills, right? And that's what Bannon is leading now. You're seeing all the information come out now with us exposing Ziklag and saying, hey, Charlie just got in the way of this. He had a different vision, right? He had a more of a political get out and get, register to vote and get active politically, locally. He didn't really bring the church in that much, but now faith has overwashed the political objectives, right? And Charlie wasn't up for that. Charlie wasn't up for, saying, okay, it's going to be Israel, right? It's Israel's right or wrong. It's going to be the Ukraine war, right or wrong. He wasn't up for the things that the organization was saying. And so therefore they got rid of him. Sort of like Kennedy saying, we don't need General Dynamics and Chicago Mob. advisors in Vietnam, we'll trade with Vietnam. If they have, if they have petroleum off the coast of Vietnam, or if they got rice or whatever, we'll trade with them. Well, no, Alan Dulles says we want to do a massive drug trade. We're tired of buying our drugs from Europe through the French connection. We want our own connection. We want the Vietnam connection. We want Laos. We want Cambodia. We want the plain of jars. We want to do our drug running like we did in the old days, right? With the drug business in China and the drug business in Korea, right? We want to regain that connection. We have to do the advisors. We have to do the helicopters, the Bell helicopters. We have to do the F-111. I mean, this is in our plan. Your vision is different from us, John F. Kennedy. Your division is different, so we're going to kill you. That's why there's such a close parallel between JFK and Charlie Kirk, because it really highlights the fact that when a leader's vision differs from the junta that supports him, right, or the tribunal that surrounds him, or the council that surrounds him, that they vote to kill him. The Caesarian analogy is very good here as well, very useful. But again, we've gotten all, they've given Tucker Carlson a few accounts, of Crook's Venmo account, PayPal account. We said all these overseas accounts occurred. They've said what the accounts are, but have they given us the metadata? Right? They're still trying to make Crooks look like a lone gunman. Kash Patel still trying to make Crooks look like a lone gunman. He just came out and said Crooks was a lone gunman, even though he had to be calling somebody overseas. Why does he have all these overseas encryption accounts? Right? It makes no sense at all, right? We know who it is. They're covering the Dimmicks. So again, this type of deception has happened before with Iran-Contra. You saw the blue dress, with a milk stain on the blue dress. So I just talk about that. It's Bill Barr again. It's Mueller again. The same people that ran the Iran-Contra are now the people that are the judges, running the investigations. So there you go. 1,000 points of light. Is it a new idea? Is it a new concept? The idea of Ziklag is to go get 1,000 pastors. Has anybody in the CIA ever had 1,000 points of light strategy before? Yeah, they have. This is George Bush with 1,000 points of light. Have they ever used religious organizations as their means of covert infiltration? Yeah, 1,000 points of light was that, right? It's happening right now with Trump and Bannon. You're seeing it in the emails where they were trying to, if Trump was going to go in the different direction of this military, council, right? That Bannon was the assigned guy to go with Michael Wolff and Jeff Epstein and take him down, right? That's what you're seeing in the emails, right? So, and the person, where are they getting the money? It's coming from China. It's coming from Sheldon Adelson. It's being laundered, or now Sherry Adelson and all the casinos, Chicago mob, but it's being laundered through this guy named Kwok. You can see he stole $1 billion of it, right? And here's Bannon and Kwok. Again, you can see the money here. You can see huge amounts of money, not $1 million, not 10 million, not 20 million, not 100 million, billions. That shows you state sponsorship. That's the mark of state sponsorship. And you're supposed to believe it's just all Steve Bannon with Kwok, right? And guacamole, right? That's what's powering the war movement. That's where Bannon's getting his billions, right? It's guacamole, right? It's not guacamole. It's a whole junta behind guacamole, right? That wants Bannon to run this war room and drive this NAR thing forward. So you can read more about that. Again, where's the real journalism? Where's the real story? Well, actually, the real story was Crooks was lured into this Allegheny gun shop because they said his dad had a gun, right? And they were able to say, oh, you should go to shooting lessons over here. We'll pay for it. We have an ATF agent embedded here. We need a patsy. We need a patsy to go shoot up a school. The original thing they wanted to do with Crooks is to have him shoot up Bethel Park School as a school shooter 3 years before the Trump assassination. They went ahead and developed Crooks as an assassin later on. They've now shut down Allegheny Arms, but we are the ones that went in and did the work at Allegheny Arms. The same thing as we were the ones that did the gumshoe out at Clairton and actually found where DHS was paying for Crooks to be developed. Now, Burchett, I think it's Representative Burchett, is now saying that there's evidence that Crooks was was sheltered and brought along. My point is that it's state sponsorship from this organization that wants to affect this vision. The way this vision is affected sometimes is getting rid of the leader who doesn't share your dreams, right? In the case of Kennedy, Kennedy doesn't want to do the General Dynamics and doesn't want to open up our drug route to the Golden Triangle. What are we going to do? Are we going to go shoot him in the middle of the street and say CIA shot Kennedy, or do we go get and develop and cultivate a lone gunman? Same thing here. Is Trump's not singing the song we want, right? He's not doing the things we want. He's not going to continue the Ukraine war. Well, let's just shoot him. He's starting to stray again a year later after he wins the election. Well, let's shoot a close proxy. Let's shoot Charlie Kirk. The next day, Trump is talking about continuing the war in Ukraine. Next day, Trump's talking about continuing the war in Ukraine. We've covered it in depth. You can go to my Substack. We covered the culling of crooks. Everyone said it was conspiracy theory. Now everyone in Washington seems to be the new fad is to say the crooks was being cultivated and culled. So anyway, we actually go to his handler's house. You can see the handler's house behind me. That's Maxwell Urich's house behind me. Again, citizen journalism just runs circles around. We're here in Washington finally. 14 months later, they're finally saying he was culled and handled. Well, we're at Maxwell Urich's place. All of our guys were up there on this roof. And we bought one room, and we're all 8 guys all looking down on Maxwell Urich's house. So it was really it's just citizen journalism is just so far ahead of the mainstream media. It's quite laughable. Here again, Tucker Carlson covers Mark Epstein and interviews Mark Epstein. Didn't cover any of the things we covered with Epstein 9 years before in the Humpty Dumpty Society, and how they were using this to arbitrage on overthrows, and how they were using this for pump and dump schemes, for currency overthrows, currency manipulations. Didn't ask any questions about the Humpty Dumpty Society when Tucker interviewed Mark Epstein. When Tucker came around and finally covered Suchir Balaji, we had already gotten our shoes wet with the blood of Suchir Balaji. We'd been there a month before anyone else. And it was only because we covered and showed how it was a murder visually that the other news organizations decided to come. Daily Mail came a month later, right? And then eventually this bubbled up to Tucker. But again, this should show you the validation of citizen journalism, right? And again, the bigger story happening here, and nobody's gotten to the bigger story, is why kill Suchir Balaji? Well, because he was saying the strategy here is to offshore all intellectual property, and basically AI is a way of stealing all the intellectual property. We'll offshore it to China, and if Biden gets elected, we'll still have all the intellectual property. It's Larry Summers. Right? This is the same thing he did with the Facebook code, right? We still haven't got to DeepSeek, and this is how DeepSeek caught up, right? We're still not there yet. Citizen journalism still a year ahead, right? Citizen journalism still a year ahead on that story with Suchir Balaji. So I think I might have put that in there twice. People talk about all the searches and so forth, but now I want to get into the various Ziklag and NAR instantiations, if you will. We can talk about 1,000 Points of Light, in the infiltration of the religious organizations with 1,000 Points of Light. Now just change that to 1,000 pastors. It's basically the same George Bush program, right, that he had with 1,000 Points of Life, right, with the 1,000 pastors that we're seeing now. The real basis of this, almost exactly, of the NAR program and the 1,000 pastor program is Calvin's Geneva, where John Calvin really thought that Geneva would be this place. NAR means a ship in Norwegian, and it's a place where you build ships. And the idea of building vessels, and then the vessel gets sent out somewhere to go proselytize some other part of the world. So the NARs create these vessels, and these vessels are these special forces guys that are coming in and being placed and put into these different churches, the 1,000 different churches. So the NAR concept is this sort of ship factory, sort of like the Kaiser ship factory. And now we're going to send out all these special forces guys. We're going to make them apostles We're going to give them, we have HP laser printer over here. We're going to print out all the apostle documentation they need. And now they're going to create, they're going to go forth and create all this. And the headquarters of this is in an old, IBL type bomber factory in Texas. Not kidding. One of the big satellite ships is in Thousand Oaks, right? So this is really John Calvin's Geneva. And if you get into John Calvin's Geneva, you'll see how all this NAR stuff comes right from that. And of course, Alan Dulles, big Calvinist, when he wrote Gladio, he just basically lifted it from John Calvin's Geneva. So John Winthrop, City on a Hill, if you want to see other examples of this, the church needs to rule everything. Councils of the church, tribunals of the military, religious tribunals need to rule everything. We need to get rid of all the branches of government. Art should be infiltrated completely. Government, commerce, education, etc. Right? Gladio was the latest, most written about with Dulles as far as how this operation runs. It was run through the Catholic Church, a very hierarchical church. A church was controlled by, I think it's Pius XI, Pius XII, Mussolini's Pope, Pius XII, Hitler's Pope, right? This was exactly how fascism worked in Europe, right? And NAR does have these fascist qualities, right? NAR does have these fascist qualities. Now, who will be the Hitler? Who is I look at McCoy as sort of the Putzi, Hitler's handler. Who will be the Hitler of this new fascism? I think it'll be Kai Schwemmer. I don't think it's Nick Fuentes. I think Nick Fuentes may be the Putzi in this example, but they are trying to fashion this new fascist movement, right? Which is our needs above the Constitution. Our needs are more important. You're already hearing the rhetoric from Nick Fuentes is saying, look at what's Trump done for you. You sacrificed your free speech. You did this. You did this for Trump. He hit you with the COVID vaccine. This is the rhetoric after World War I with Hitler, right? It's like you fought the war, right? And then you were stabbed in the back. They called it stab in the back. Very hearkening the Caesarean situation. You were stabbed in the back. Right. This is Nick Fuentes. You were stabbed in the back. You need to rise up. You need to take what's yours. Right. Forget about the three branches of government. Forget about the judiciary. Forget about rule of law. This is your time now. Steve Bannon's the advocate. He's sort of the advisor, the Vatican fixer in the background, saying, you need to do this. This is your time. Right here. Let me put the dagger in your hand. He's talking about Trump 2028, right? He's pushing Trump 2028 right now. Trump 2028 is the rallying cry, okay? This is nothing more than Alan Dulles' reformulated Gladio, though, at the end of the day. How does it work? Well, you don't have to wait for somebody else. You have bomb-making equipment. If you're a military organization, you can just go blow up a train. If you want to start a false flag, you just go blow up a train, like the train station here in Bologna. Didn't we just have this happen yesterday in Poland? If the war isn't going well and everything is waning, go blow up a train station, right? Have the Polish authorities, say, hey, this shall not stand. We're going to get in the war now with Ukraine and support the war in Russia. Now the war expands to another country. Isn't it just that simple? Once Poland is in, isn't all of the adjacent countries to the Soviet Union in, right? All the mice and men, arguing in all their chambers of government all over the world can't hold a candle to somebody starting a fire on the Polish border with Russia, right? Now Poland's all in, right? Now Poland's all in, and now we have our 20-year war. So that's how Gladio works. Gladio doesn't wait for somebody else's timetable. Gladio makes its own timetable. We've done a lot on Gladio. I just put some of the imagery from the Gladio we've talked about. But there's a lot here that I've written on that I didn't have time to illustrate yet. But you'll get into all the details with 1,000 churches, 1,000 pastors, 1,000 nodes, and so forth. um, and you'll. I get very detailed. I get very detailed in terms of the infiltration is concerned. But at the end of the day, it's this. At the end of the day, it's this. It's Alan Dulles' Gladio. At the end of the day. All right, we'll go back to the messages and we'll catch up. Here's Julie Smith. The church likes to retell the church history in terms of their conferences, and this happened here and this happened here, and they leave out the military things that are happening in the backdrop. And I tend to talk about the things that are happening in the military sphere, because the church meetings and the government meetings and all the meetings around tend to fall in line with the military reality. The military can kill you, right? That's the ultimate enforcement power. Good morning. Good morning. British East India Company, when you absolutely positively need your contraband shipped on time. Yeah. That's the criticism here, which is these aren't governments, these are mafias. And the mafias are the ones writing the story. And they're just doing it through the constructs of respectable institutions, through infiltrations. So, yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of British my trolls. I've had MI6 trolls from 9 years now on their wants. They do not want this story out, right? This is the most intense trolling. Dobro jutro from Slovenia. We went and did all the NATO war countries with all the Melania's citizen journalists over there that Simon leads in Eastern Europe. So we've done 9 countries now, 10 countries with Simon, a lot of countries. So we've looked at both sides of this. Church is like a golf club. A golf club with a lot of blood on it. Church is like a golf club but when you start talking about NAR, it's a golf club it's Sam Shepard Golf Club. It's a Sam Shepard Golf Club. It's the 5-iron is laden with blood, right? It's a different sort of, it's a baseball bat, but it's an Al Capone baseball bat with a lot of blood on the end of the bat. Who killed Charlie Kirk? Well, I mean, you look at the messages, again, you look at who's being protected, you look at the metadata, and you got to say, Ermaya and her assassins, why bring in Ermaya and bring in assassins if you're not going to use them, right? Why have Tyler Robinson, talking with those assassins right before the murder of Charlie Kirk if you're not going to use them? Why not follow the leads of the assassins, right? If there was an assassination today and I saw John Bolton, I think, is the person who brought in Ardestani and Farahani. I said that at least a year ago. After Trump, I said, Bolton's the one who brought in Ardestani and Farahani. They're the ones who paid Crooks. They're the ones who gave him the money. They're the ones who bankrolled it. I can't remember the other guy's name. Merchant paid him the money. They flew him to Washington. They drove him to Washington in the white van. So he's obviously culled. We have the Heritage Foundation hits on all the different places the white van went over time. Why are we only getting a keyhole of information? Why are we only getting an eyedropper of information? We know. If we put these things together, we'll tell you exactly who are behind this. We know Ermaya's movements. We know she had electronic devices. We know Machine Gun Charlie, who I believe is the one who killed Charlie Kirk, is a Hezbollah assassin, right? Or maybe he's an Al-Qaeda assassin, but he's coming into the United States, into Armed Queers, into Salt Lake City, doing reconnaissance on the murder. Why wouldn't I start there for who murdered Charlie Kirk? Bombs Away LeMay. Yes, it was Bombs Away LeMay, who originally ran the CIA infiltration. It was Seven Mountain. I want to be clear here. One brother, the Seven Mountain Mandate, LeMay has the money in Riverside, and that's a SAC Air Command base. But he's sending one brother into the music industry as Sunshine with Robert Allen Hale to addle the whole Sunset Strip music scene with Laurel Canyon. That's one brother's going that way, but the other brother we found out yesterday is going into Haight Ashbury and doing the Jesus freak thing as a hippie preacher. So this isn't. This is that was the Seventh Mountain Mandate happening way back then before the John F. Kennedy. And again, it's the same people funding it. It's the moneyed interest, the oil and uranium folks, the Koch brothers, funding it. Now we have whistleblower, and I'm not going to be the guy who gets killed over this. So somebody's going to have to step in with me. But I know who the whistleblower is, and I know they're talking to candidates, and I know they're talking to other people. And I know the Koch brother is giving $100 million. He's one of the Zicklaggers that hasn't come out yet. And I'm not going to die on that cross. Brian Lloyd's already dead, and Task Force is already dead, and I'm not going to die over this one. And I'm not going to be responsible for the death of the whistleblower. But I'm saying that there's a $100 million donor out there that has not been revealed of Ziklag. It's not just Hobby Lobby. It's not just Uline, right? It's not just the Greens. It's the same people that were involved in the Afghanistan war with Charlie Wilson's war. So bombs away LeMay, cyberplay, the killing of Charlie Kirk. Yes, well, that's what probably we'll call it. But I do think you need the long lens. I do think you need the compounding of the lenses of World War I, World War II, and the Cold War to really do the analysis, to the metadata analysis. When there is no evidence at the crime scene, you still have that. You still have the metadata, right? And sometimes metadata leads you to the physical evidence, which is a beautiful thing. It works over and over. It works over and over. There are tunnels in Riverside. Yeah. Somebody said you're conspiracy theorist because you said there was tunnels in Washington. I said, here, let me show you the Metro map. There's tunnels in New York. You're a conspiracy theorist. No. Let me show you the subway map of New York. It's a real thing. Yeah. Any updates on Candace's own husband's identity and background? Well, George Farmer. Yeah, probably British intelligence. Yeah, probably her handler. Yeah. What better way to handle someone than have kids with them? I mean, you're kind of like, she can't get away anytime soon, right? She's got to kind of work with him. But I do think they will bring Candace forward as the next Diana, because you do need that kind of icon in social movements. That's the mountain. That's the mountain of entertainment. And you can just look at her numbers. Look at her podcast numbers. She's number one. She blew by Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan had $200 million contract, right, with Spotify. Blew by Joe Rogan. That's a lot of money. Blew by Tucker Carlson. Blew by everybody. Her destiny with George Farmer, her destiny is the next Diana. Ray Frisbee rose to prominence in the Jesus movement, baptizing thousands at Calvary Temple, and then the Vineyard movement, yes, and becoming known as AP Preacher. In Frisbee, I remember that because they had the kind of off-the-wall name. We have a whole bunch of people who at our Michigan charrette knew all of these people, and a lot of them were in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana. So it's amazing how all these charrettes, after you get to 56, I can't do them on one hand anymore. I used to be able to do all the charrettes, I just would wait for a 52, 5-2, but now we're at 56, but they're cumulative. The intelligence and the synthesis gathers from charrette to charrette. So they're getting better and better. But yeah, we talked a lot about the Vineyard movement this last time. Well, I'll do a simultaneous sip. The only thing I got here at the hotel, and I have bad internet, I apologize, but is Starbucks Christmassy. So buy me a coffee if you really want to give me a great Christmas present. Or become a paid subscriber, just georgewebsubstack.com. That's also Calvary Temple in Presbyterian Presbytery, which is the Scottish version, Scottish Presbyterians is that there will be a council. There will be a council of 12 that will decide. It won't be any one individual. So that's Presbyterianism, right? And there's a lot of overlap there with Masonry, with Council of 12. You look in the Mormon Church, picked up that Masonry, Council of 12. Last Supper is the best model for rule. Tribunals in Rome picked that up. Are the ones that kind of instituted that, the tribunal. Did you and Peter? Oh yeah. Did we offer any section? Well, I didn't. Peter, we showed Peter's 300 books. We call the Library of Alexandria. Peter's Library of Alexandria, I think they gave the book list, the 300 books. Peter did 6-minute notebook LM summaries of those books. They talked about a barcoding scheme where somebody could come in and hear the summaries. There's also a brief 2-minute summaries that he's doing. He's also done 30-minute summaries for some of the books. We're talking about speakers, having speakers come in. We're inviting everybody. We put them in the movie, put them in the series, and sort of like a guest star. Ian Carroll is the guest star. Coming in, looking at the big board and then saying, "Hey, this is what I learned." Or Candace Owens comes to the battery factory, and Tesla's batteries, are covered with the NAR. We roll down this, the secret NAR, map of the infiltration of the 1,000 churches. And we tell Ian, here's the story. That's sort of the idea. But we did do a lot of work on books. Peter put a whole bunch of new books into the Library of Alexandria, and it's out there at Duke Media. If you go to Peter's Substack at, I always get this wrong. I want to say Peter Duke at Substack.com, but I think it's Duke Report at Substack.com. But if you type in all a combination of those things, you'll get to Peter's Substack, and then it's all there. The book library is there, or at the Duke Report. We'll do the simultaneous sip. Not 10% Hunter, 100%, 100% to the big guy. The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, a lot of the Star Wars. We went and saw some Star Wars paraphernalia at the bookstore. A lot of artwork went into the Star Wars, going all the way back to the first one in 1977. They have all these collector's editions, and George Lucas, I can't remember, wrote the screenplay for. Anyway, when we went into a little historiography that we did with George Lucas before he did Star Wars, kind of military intel background. First Council of Nicaea, decrees, ordinations. Yeah. Top of the morning, go Max. I've been thinking. That's basically what you're talking about, which is the timeline of history with revisionist history, is basically what Peter's talking about doing at Grassroots Bookstore. I think it'll be called Peter's Books, because I don't think they want necessarily. I don't know. Man, we'll see if we use the real name or not. That's still up for grabs. We don't know. Non-Catholics, but we do want to have speaking engagements there. The whole thing is, we're trying to get as close under the nose hairs of Elon Musk as possible, because Elon Musk is the one that has the money that can be the counterweight to this NAR thing. We need backing, we need money, and that's why we basically are one. Put it in a store that's one of the nose hairs of Tesla, right? Are the wealthy donors called narwhales? Well, it was NARs were long distance traveling vessels from the Norse times. So maybe narwhales is a good way to say it. Words and names used for virtual signaling. Uh, Apostle, I think, is one of the virtue signaling words. Um, all the typical words of righteousness, God's will. Um, there's prophetic. Um, I think it's more like using prophecy and I had a dream kind of thing. Using prophecy for justification, prophetic justification, I think is probably the number one signature of NAR. Well, we killed Charlie Kirk because he, this piece of scripture here said so. This Romans here, which says, meet with him individually, then meet with him as a group. And then if he doesn't meet as a group, then we have to mark him and then cleave him away. Right? It's not us killing Charlie Kirk. It's Romans 18 or whatever. But virtue signaling, the Bible is the virtue signal. Like everything's done through Scripture. Prophetic justification is the gist of NAR. Right? At the end of the day, it all comes down to prophetic justification. It could be turned into a book series and a docuseries. Well, so far we're looking at 6 episodes. People say you're trying to make money, you're trying to live, you're trying to eat. I want to make all my money through my work, which is the Substack that you saw earlier, $8 a month. Try to get your kids to work like that for $8 a month. What I want to do is have a partner share with Peter, and I want Peter to have. Peter's been the one who has done all the work on this one. He's the one who's done the whole Library of Alexandria. He's the one who's done all the work, and he hasn't really been paid for it. And I want to make sure that is taken care of first before anything for me. He's really done the whole. It's sort of like he's the guy who's spending all of his money building the light microscope and building all the electron microscope, and no one's on his own money and so forth. So he's the one who built the Library of Alexandria that he's going to give to the world, and to be able to consume it rapidly, where you could in 1 year, just in 1 month, if you really wanted to, you could do all 300 books because they're only 6 minutes a piece. If you want to do the 30-minute versions, you could even do it if you just binged, right? So that's a lot of effort, and that's happened over the last 5 years. So I really want that to be remunerated before me. It's Ziklag. Didn't I say Ziklag? Did I say Ziklag? I think it's Gladio, to be honest with you. It's a lot easier to spell. Ziklag. I think your spelling and my spelling are the same. Ziklag, right? Ziklag. Roll it up and roll Ziklag papers. Yeah, I do remember there was Zig something papers. I don't smoke, but I know that there are people that started with Zig something. Yeah, the mega donors have been exposed. Is there any way to expose mega donors is the question. Are they exposed? Yes. And there's a whistleblower right now. And this is very dangerous. This is very dangerous. And I don't want to get that person killed, and I don't want to be killed. And I know this person said, well, at least this person said they were talking to Candaceoans. They said they were talking to other people. So I think when people see it's the Koch brothers, one's dead, but when they see it's a Koch brother, when they see it's, Charlie Wilson's war all over again, they're going to be surprised. And the reason why that they're not listed right now is for exactly that reason. Yeah, I think, well, Jesus is used by a lot of organizations for virtue signaling, but the trips to Israel, Ziklag wasn't discovered until 2019. So the idea of going off in the wilderness and then shoring up your forces and then reattacking when you're in strength and you're trained. That's the idea of Ziklag. I don't know if Charlie went to Ziklag or not. Oh, Ziglag is the papers. Okay. Ziglag, and Ziklag was. People talk when strapped to a chair. Yeah, we have whistleblowers. I mean, there's whistleblowers here. That's not the problem. It's the journalists deciding to publicize the whistleblowers is where we're at right now. And people say I got 2 people killed already. So I think I'm just not going to do it. Brian Lloyd, I think, wanted to get the information out about military lab exercise, and I think task force did too. So I don't think I killed either one of them. I think they both had both eyes open going into what they were exposing, and I think it's the same thing here. It's just a matter of I'll know how far the investigation is going to go if they go there. Um, Tom O'Neill, yeah, tells us about. Pretty sure the book Tom O'Neill tells us who took Charlie Kirk off the stage. Again, Tom O'Neill goes to the gates of the Los Angeles Air Force Base. We go in. That's the difference here. The book goes to the gates and with Reeve Whitson in the last chapter. If you read Chaos and Tom O'Neill, it's the last chapter. Curtis LeMay may or may not even be mentioned. Where do we start? Curtis LeMay, Reeve Whitson, and then we have all the other people: Robert Allen Hale, William Hale. We have all the other people in the infiltrations. That's where we start, right? Is where basically Tom leaves off in the 13th chapter. And I know Candace loves that, but we're just going to have to wait for Candace to get there too. Candace is going to have to get to chapter 13 too, and then that's where we're going to probably end up, meeting up. Have you heard of Richard Grove and the Grand Theft of World podcast? Yes, I have, and we are working with Richard Grove. Peter does a whole bunch of stuff for Richard Grove. We're also talking. That's one of the names on the whiteboard that we want to come to bring to the Tesla battery bookstore, to the Elon Musk bookstore. Basically, we got tired of, to be honest, we got tired of waiting for Elon to come to Michigan. When it's all said and done, we got tired of waiting for Elon to Michigan. So rather than asking Muhammad to come to the mountain, we went to the bookstore on Muhammad's mountain. Literally, it's on the mountain of Elon's factory. So we, moved the mountain to Muhammad. That's sometimes what you have to do. But we want Richard Grove to come. We want Jay Dyer to come. We want Matthew Crawford. We want. They're all on that. They're all on that board. A lot of the things Peter Duke does to synthesizes, and Matthew Arendt. These guys have all. There's other people out there that had the Peter Duke thing, which is the lens of history, I call it. That each lens is a compounding lens. If you look at them through the scope of history, so Matthew Arendt would be in that category. Richard Grove would be in that category. Michael Hoffman would be in that category. So we want all of those types of people to be speakers here. And again, we want it to be as close to Elon's armpit as possible. And he can't avoid us forever. So pretty sure book explains who Erica Kirk is. Weird Scenes. Yes, it's called Weird Scenes. You could not see that. You could not see the screen. Nothing new under the sun. Can't remember which part of the Bible says nothing new under the sun. But I think there's adaptations. Eric or Kirk who? That's funny. First Test Tube Baby by Jack Nicholson. No, Peter knew Jack Nicholson and knows Jack Nicholson, but not very well. But has been out with Jack Nicholson before on the LA scene. So he's not Jack Nicholson's Test Tube Baby. No. There are a number of secret Serbian armies created and deployed through Europe by the Nazis, which most notoriously was Gladio in Italy. Who was the brains behind this creation was James Jesus Angleton. James Jesus Angleton was the American CIA guy that was Gladio, and Alan Dulles as well. But then also Peter Duke would contend William Stevenson, the man called Intrepid, was the guy at the special SIS or SES, I can't remember. British Secret Services, British intelligence services that taught Alan Dulles, and the CIA was a creation of William Stevenson. Well, Jack Nicholson was had a very close relationship with Robert Evans of Paramount, and what a lot of people say, Jack Nicholson was very closely involved with Robert Allen Hale. He went to live on Robert Allen Hale's uranium ranch in New Mexico. Easy Rider. All these stars had very close relationships with the people who ran the mob studio, which was Paramount Pictures. Just saying, it always helps to be friends with a guy who was running the studio. And there was a big CIA backing with Robert Allen Hale with Paramount. One true Catholic church started on Pentecost Day under the first true Pope, St. Pope Peter I. It was probably around 325 AD, I'm guessing. DC Corp replaced with the military. Well, there is this idea of maritime law that the ex-Confederate general, I can't remember his name right now, but big Mason guy. But anyway, he said, if we just basically declare maritime law, that means all the tribunals that exist under maritime law can be used rather than having to worry about government. If we have admiralty law, that means the admirals are in charge. So that's the idea there. That's supposedly why we have the gold fringe on all the flags, because it's an admiralty fringe. Peter Duke is not the test tube baby of Jack Nicholson. They're about the same age. Trump happy with military taking over? I don't think so. I don't think Trump wants to be a part of it. But I did see Trump making excuses for Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. It's very odd that a president would step out of line to say, oh, don't worry about Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes. You should forgive him for that. We're talking about a commentator interviewing a 24-year-old. Why does the president need to step in on that? If the president isn't taking orders from a tribunal somewhere, his cabinet, with Bessent and not Lufkin, but if he's not taking orders, who is he taking orders from? 80-year cycle. Yeah. Let's see, Deborah, if you look old enough at the new age to Chuck Smith, now I see other ideas push cropping up. Yeah, about 80 years. Yeah, that makes sense. That's about a lifetime, right? We can recycle this. We talked about Amy McPherson, and this all was done with Amy McPherson in the 20s with the Charlie Kirk type thing, where there was she kidnapped herself supposedly, and then they got tremendous amounts of contributions, and everyone followed it, and it totally took everyone's mind off of the Teapot Dome scandal, and the rhetoric was building with Charlie against the Ukraine war, and he was getting the people on the campuses forming a bipartisan coalition against the Ukraine war. And that was not the direction they wanted to go. And he was about ready to start the campus tour at UVU. That was the first stop where they were, from the summer break. So it's only going to get worse. He was going to Utah State right after that. We said they would probably false flag that, bomb it. We went to the exact location 5 days later. That's where the bombing was. You can read the tea leaves here. They don't want anybody out there who's not talking about, defending Israel and continuing the Ukraine war. I went to the one in Bozeman in Montana State with Ramaswamy, and that's basically what he said. You need to continue the Ukraine war, and you need to, continue in Gaza. He talked about this is the October 7th. He wanted to make sure that he was talking on October 7th because he didn't want to talk about Gaza. He said this is the one day of the year that we shouldn't talk politics. By choosing the October 7th date to speak on, right, he was able to, kind of wash away any criticism. He basically said you can't ask a Gaza question because it's October 7th. You don't look old enough to be New Age era. Same as Chuck Smith. I'm not. I don't know who Chuck Smith is, and so I'm not saying I know the New Age era. I'm 65 though, so no spring chicken. We are sacrificial lambs. We were born to be sacrificed. Well, you have that attitude, and that's the attitude I wake up with every day. Is I'm not in charge. The big guy's in charge. I give 100% to the big guy, so I don't have to worry about it. If I'm eliminated, like, hey, I did it. My cup, there wasn't 1% that I was sipping to myself, not one. So if I go, and it's not my wish. The rock, the cornerstone is Jesus. I couldn't agree more. Constantine was a great ruler and a saint. Put your they live discernment. Put your they live discernment glasses on. Jack was a product of incest. I don't know that to be true. I don't know really that whole thing. Knights of Malta meal. They are going to introduce at Burger King a Knights of Malta meal. I heard that. I'm joking. I don't think that's true. Rome today is not the Rome primitive, the true Catholic Church, first 1,000 years since Pentecost Day. I will defer to those matters for the series. I'm sure we're going to have the characters talk about the Nicene Creed and the beginning of the Catholic Church and all that. But I really want Peter and a Matthew Aaron and a Jay Dyer and a Richard Grove and those types of folks, Michael Hoffman. I want those guys to be in the room. Okay. Let's see. New apostles are the same things as Latter-day Saints. Well, there is a strange parallel there, isn't there? New apostles, the latter rain, the new apostles, NAR movement is most closely associated, just as far as all the details, letter for letter, almost with latter rain, and latter rain are the soldiers that take the field after the shit hits the fans, so to speak. And those are the Latter-day Saints, very, very much like the Latter-day Saints. Just call them new apostles. So I don't want to get into flame wars here with religious flame wars. I said I didn't. if it starts turning into religious flame wars, you get a free trip on the Dundee slip and slide. Golden Triangle, yes. Golden Triangle was basically the CIA saying we want a friend in the diamond business. We don't want to buy our diamonds anymore on the Belgian exchange. Tom Shane, you're in the yes. No, Tom, I know you're here in the studio with me. We're making a Tom Shane diamond commercial. When I say Tom Shane, I don't want you to say yes. Right? But you remember Tom Shane? You now have a friend in the diamond business. He buys his diamonds direct from Amsterdam. That was the CIA with Alan Dulles. We want to get our drug supply direct from Vietnam, direct from the people. We don't need an intermediary. We don't need a drug intermediary. We can get it direct. 80-year cycles, I would agree with the 80-year cycle. That's about the life of one man and or woman. Erica wears M&G diamond earrings. The Ziklag members are known. They're sworn to secrecy, but they have whistleblowers. I'll just say that's the big news that's coming. I do agree with this too. If when you in your training, you are started out on a controlled church. A cult is a controlled church where you control the membership completely, and you don't fling the doors open, and you make sure everybody goes through their, their allegiances of loyalty, death, and do all these things. That way, one day when Rob McCoy says, "Hey, that George Webb? He's kind of making odd sounds. Sounds like the devil." You know what to do when you hear devil sounds, right? And that's how you end up with Las Vegas shooting. That's how you end up with borderline cafe shooting. Thank you for reposting. Charlie wouldn't sell out. I agree. That's what killed him. Love listening. Thank you. 600,000 Chinese students working to build a land bridge to Putinville. I'd be interested to see where that is. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be FBI director. I don't really have time in the field, but Robin Gritz really is the person who should be the director of the FBI. She's seen it all, been there. She's done all the stuff with the CIA. She knows all their tricks. I know she's a strong proponent of Mike Flynn. That's my only reservation, but Robin Gritz has really been there and done it in every kind of terrorism situation. And watching these guys is tough. Watching these two guys is tough. Kennedy was definitely part of a pattern for sure. I posted something. I talked to I have a strange relationship now with my brother, one of my brothers. I haven't talked to him for 7 years now, something like that, 6 years. But I posted something when I came to Vegas 15 years ago with him. And for Christmas, I hadn't seen him in a long time. It was kind of out in the wilderness. I finally saw him again. It was in Las Vegas. So I have good memories of that because I was able to see him for Christmas. It was 2010. So I think the last time I saw him in person. But I posted the last time I saw him in person. I think it was a Vegas trip in 2010 for Christmas. So that's out there. Total transparency. There we go. Let's see. Read my lips. No infiltrated churches. Why do you think the media doesn't like citizen journalism? Because it's sort of like if you were a propaganda machine and you made you had a newspaper that printed things like the moon is made of green cheese, or that bats flew 1,000 miles and mated with pangolins, and then they mated with flying fish, and then the flying fish flew off to 140 different countries, and that's how the pandemic started. And then you have other people saying, no, 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 it's a military lab exercise. Here's the Wuhan, here's the joint venture for 10 years with USAID Predict, and here's all the people, Michael Callahan going in there, and all the people working on the spike, and all the people working on the back end, for the anthrax or whatever they were going to attach to the spike. You hate them because they are blowing up your story, which is there's a bat mated with a pangolin, which mated with a flying fish, and the flying fish flew to 140 different countries, right? Their whole scandal sheet, their whole propaganda mill depends on no citizen journalism. We talked about the financial irregularities at TPUSA. It was two foundations created. Very seldom does a foundation give money to another foundation. That's a sure signature of money laundering, right? Or if they do, it's not very much money. It's like $100 over here, $50 over there. But when you have a $90 million organization or $80 million organization in 2023, looking at their books now, creating two multi-million-dollar charities. This is like the Clinton Foundation creating the Clinton Global Initiative. This is what Braverman wouldn't sign the things because the donors are anonymous, and that's where you use the donors' money to flip countries. That's what Eric Braverman wouldn't sign. That's the why we named Braverman in the lawsuit. That's why we named Podesta in the lawsuit. That's why Podesta Group folded. That's why they folded Clinton Global Initiative, right? They're getting there. I just saw it come out. A couple of people said there's audit. People are talking about the audit, the Doge audit of TPUSA, and it's going to be these foundations. I can tell you, it's going to be the Clinton Foundation all over again. They wouldn't hide it and have a secret board of directors and a secret list of donors if they weren't trying to hide it. That $10 million is going to be where they're launching. The reason why they wanted to infiltrate Charlie Kirk is they already had all the chapters established. When you murder Charlie Kirk, they got 8,800 or supposedly more chapters. And that money is going to be used to bring these people to their big event is in December in Phoenix. They're going to bring all of them into Phoenix. They're going to take them through their course in miracles, their litany or liturgy, if you will. And then they're going to send them back all to those different campuses, right? This NAR thing, it's the NAR is the ship that is meant to be built in a central location and then sent out on a long mission. The vessels are the preachers that are coming there. The whole NAR strategy requires them all to come to a central location, which is Glendale, where you saw the big, mega funeral. And that is the strategy. And those are those carve-outs are the way of paying the people who are the key guys, the elites, without it being listed in the board of directors. I believe those two carve-outs are for the McCoys, and if I had to say Lance Wallnau, I would say Lance Wallnau is the other one. I think McCoy is one of the foundations, and I would say Lance Wallnau, and NAR is the other one. Because you need to also have, if you have a NAR organization, which isn't all Ziklag, right? And you want to keep infiltrating the NAR organizations, right? You have to have somebody over at the NAR organizations that you're feathering their bed, right? As you're militarizing these different pastors, and you're putting in these special forces guys into these different churches. So those are the two organizations we talked about. I've written Substacks about it. NAR is kind of a kooky group of churches, but we all know you put an AR-15 in a kooky kid's hand and you can do a lot of damage. I'm at a place right now where we're looking into a shooting that happened here. Risen, foreshadowing a film. Yes, I'll check it out. I think the presentation is on the screen. I think the presentation is on the screen. Um, yeah, I think all these things are get away from Ziklag. Get away from this private interest taking over their church to then take the control of the government. I think that get away from that, because that's the plan. That's I think it's a plan for destruction. I think it's a plan to send a whole bunch of people to their death. Use religion. I don't think it's to control people. I think it's to lead them to slaughter. Ziklag, chapters, 1 Samuel, chapters 27 to 30. Courts are captured. I would agree with that. I tell you, if you have sheep, there's no happier dog in the world than a sheepdog that has sheep. And I don't think Quigley, we were with this Bernedoodle for these 4 days. I don't think Quigley's going to be a cancer dog. You need a golden retriever or something like that. I think he's going to be a sheepdog. He loves herding people. He loves herding sheep. Well, that's why I like Maggie Magnificent. She's not going to work out as a cancer dog either, but she is working the farm, and she's with the goats and the sheep, and she's with not the sheep, but the chickens and the goats, especially with the goats. But herding animals, the dogs are happy when they're out there herding. Yeah, the White House office is run by a NARP preacher, and I can't remember what her name is. Norma White? Is it Norma White? I could be wrong about Nick. I'm not. I'm again. I'm like Tucker Carlson, right? Is like I'll interview him. Nick, come on the show. I've heard him say things to things about Trump, which is, what did Trump do for you? Right? You sacrificed for Trump. Trump hasn't sacrificed for you. That's what I just heard him say, and that's very reminiscent of Hitler after World War One. You are the soldiers that fought all these battles. The generals didn't fight the battles, right? Now look at what's happened. The general stabbed you in the back. Shouldn't you rise up and take what's yours? Isn't that what caused the Nuremberg laws, and isn't that what caused the takeover of the overthrow of the Weimar Republic? Isn't it? Wasn't it from those disaffected soldiers from World War One, from the youth that were disaffected, that had a young Hitler telling them, "Hey, this Weimar Republic, listening to opera and learning science and all this stuff for the birds. It needs to all be under the control of the Catholic Church and the Nazi Party." Isn't that what he's saying? Paula White. Paula White. Yeah. The Israel question is, I'm not going to go to the Israel question today. I'm just going to say that Janice Meyer, Nathan Meyer did Israel Birth of a Nation. That's our group. We did Shoah Foundation, 52,000 Stories of the Holocaust, more than all the other Holocaust museums. Unless you were an original settler, you really don't have any moral high ground to call us anti-Semites. But then on the other hand, we've picked out all the super Zionists. We picked out all the super Zionists. Rob Emanuel, we talked about his biolab in Faisalabad. We talked about Feinberg with DynCorp. talked about Danny Rothschild with anthrax. Um, so we've talked about Dov Zakheim with Special System Planning Corporation and the autopilots on 9/11. So we're beyond all reproach when it comes to Israel. Um, let's see. Yeah, I agree with that. Money is not true wealth. I couldn't agree with that more. Money is the ultimate drug, and drug is the ultimate money. Drugs are the ultimate money. Tyler's not a patsy, but he is a operative. Tyler's not a patsy, but he is an operative, and he didn't shoot Charlie Kirk. That's for sure. Um, here's Thermostro. How did the Heritage obtain the data? Through citizen journalists. What happened was the Heritage Foundation and Ed Meese, right, who is the original guy who was with Reagan and set up the military crackdown of the anti-war movement with Curtis LeMay, that guy took original hits that people had paid money for Crooks's house, where they data fenced Crooks's house and his home, and then co-opted it, and then immediately started publicizing it to do signal reduction on the original source, the original citizen journalist who did the data sourcing, and they immediately hid the 5 hits south of Bethel Park where the van stopped. So they immediately hid all those hits, and then they hid the hits. Out of the 20 hits, they hid 6 of them. Right? And that would have told us a lot more. Why did they hide the other 5 hits? Because those are the other 5 snipers that were being picked up, taken to shooting lessons. It was a sniper team. It was a shooting club that was at Clairton. That part's not being told to you. Because they don't want to make it look state sponsored. Yeah, I couldn't agree with this more. It should be called Koknar. You're not going to use your free speech to criticize your own government. What's the use of having it? That's good. I like that line. Quincy Institute is Soros plus Koch bra, the remaining Koch brother. I agree with that. Quincy Institute is interesting because here's these guys who are perfectly willing from the left and the right to create chaos and own what's left after the chaos. Have I ever heard of Obure, Obure? Tyler's other boyfriend from Minnesota is Robin Westman. Robert had a Sky Valdez song written on his gun. Yeah, I do remember the name. I need to go back there. There are tunnels everywhere. Her father-in-law is in the House of Lords of London. Yes. Yeah. George Farmer's father is in the House of Lords in London or at Westminster. Yes, I agree with that. Churchill was in the House of Lords, right? But Churchill did an awful lot in World War I and World War II. I mean, Lusitania is Churchill's false flag in World War I. World War II, I mean, we got a lot of false flags. So when he's in more power, but You don't need to get very high up, to create a false flag. You know, Jim Morrison's dad with Gulf of Tonkin. You don't need it. It doesn't take much to create a false flag for a 20-year war. Strux and his helicopters. Candy was number one on podcasts for one day. No, I don't think that's true. I think she's been number one a lot. I would consider that misinformation. Yeah, I think we do have some people being thrust into the limelight here with just meteoric numbers, which, good for Candace. Somebody's going to send me coffee? Great. You have the Michigan address. Send it to Michigan. You have the Bedford address, right? There has to be a tiebreaker if there's 12. Yeah, there's like a Doge. There is a tiebreaker, but normally they like to see it all work out between the 12. Like you guys work it out to 7-5. I don't really want to be the tiebreaker. Yeah, there is a tiebreaker. It is 13, but again, that's why the Supreme Court has 9, right? But the person usually in charge, if CEO types with 12, they don't want to be the tiebreaker. They like it when the Council of Elders says 11 to 1. Okay, we're going to go with 11 to 1. Um, 12 are not full and equal. Yeah, that is similar to Freemasonry. Oh, I don't know. It's going to give you get a free ride on the slip and slide if you say something against Ian Carroll. Now, look, Ian Carroll and Candace Owens couldn't be farther apart on Israel, but I have respect for them, and I won't see their name slandered. Either one, not going to happen here. You can do it while you're going down the Dundee slip and slide. Enjoy it while you're on the Dundee slip and slide. Neuralink, I don't think we want the Neuralink, but I do think they want you to have the Neuralink. Otherwise, they wouldn't be pushing Neuralink. I think there's a program of infiltration that this Ermaya is running, state-sponsored, funding from the USAID, funding from UN. That's state sponsorship. Those are big organizations to be giving a kid money, right? And they do not want her role with Tyler Robinson coming out. You see, they are just trying to stop that at all costs. Now someone else is saying it's Matthew, not Romans. It's Matthew, which is the friend thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you have a problem, seek them out. If they still have a problem, seek them out with a group. If they still have a problem, then mark them, and then cleave them from the group. Yeah, Mormonism does have a lot of new apostolic. There is with Latter Rain and Latter-day Saints, there is a big crossover there. It might be disguised Mormonism in a way to make a coalition. They are outstanding. Zigzag papers, not zigzag, zigzag. I remember it was zigzag rolling papers. Am I that far behind? Oh my goodness gracious. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's been great. Um, um, I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to get to all your comments. Um, we don't have contact info. I can't call her, send a donation, hard to find. Contact me on Twitter and I'll get you to Aaron. I'll get you to Aaron. But maybe I'll have you send the coffee to the Duke Report. But I do want that coffee. I do want that coffee. What do I think about digital ID? Yeah, mark of the beast kind of thing is going to happen. I love when people go down the slip and slide. There you go. We're going to leave it right there. I will work on making sure that Aaron puts up his new address. I think it's the old address on the website. And like, how are people going to send us stuff? We talked about a whole bunch of books for Ghana and filling up a big container and just like filling it up with thousands of books and sending it for Christmas. But I don't think I'm going to get there by Christmas. So we'll have to worry about that on the next time around. Thanks very much for joining. If I didn't get your comment, come back the next broadcast and we'll take it from there. Thank you very much for joining.